How's it going? So look, we have two blocks, block 1 and block 2. So when I'm increasing count, this component is not re-rendering, and that's good. So that means useContext can be reused. That's kind of the purpose of this whole thing. So I'll show you. I drew it out, so it's a bit confusing, but you get the gist of it, right? So first you create a context, then you create a wrapper. So this is what it looks like. Actually, I'm just gonna minimize it. So we create the context, and then we create the wrapper. Wrapper receives properties as name. Now let's just talk about simple purposes. Let's forget about that this exists. Let's just focus on this. Okay. So then we create reusable context provider. We pass the values into it, which is going to be the name, which comes from property, and then we're going to pass the children into it. Right. So you can think of this as a block. So this wrapper here acts as a block. So whatever you put into this block, I suppose, and then you pass properties, will be visible by these components here. Right, so this is what it's going to look like in the code form. So we create a block. So you see we created a block. We put the context wrapper into it. So we're taking this wrapper and we're putting it in here. We pass the property, which is name, which comes from here. You see, there it is. Now, we can now put infinite number of components into here, and they will all see this as a property. You see? Name or yaya. Okay? And of course we need to put it into block 1 main. We can put it in here. Okay, so what do we do with this component? So in the block, when we're creating the block, right? It's Pomodoro, my apologies. Okay, so when we're creating the block, we can put many components into it. So the question is, how will components see this value? And the answer to that is they're gonna use this context, oh, this one here, to see the value. So you see, we import the context from here, and then we use create use context. Now, because this component here, block 1 main, is sitting inside here with property oyaya, he will be able to see whatever is in here. I'm just explaining some. I just realized I sound like one of those. Do you remember the Rockwell automation? Now, basically, the new principle involved is that instead of power being generated by relative motion of conductors and fluxes, is being consumed by the modular interaction of magnetorelaxants and capacitive directants. It's been achieved. The original baseplate had prefibulated amylite surmounted by logarithmic casing in such a way where the two spurving vessels are in direct line with panometric fan. Basically, holy shit, you're gonna have to manually do it. There's no way to explain it. You just have to manually just exercises. That's what I'm doing right now. Like, I'm explaining it to myself, but realistically there is no physical way I can explain it without you step by step doing it. So probably stop this video and go do step by step. Okay, I'm gonna link in the description below probably this stuff here. It's kind of like questions and answers. So it starts with syntax 1, which is like super easy to understand, and it goes into syntax 2, which is a little bit difficult. And this is what you're looking for. This is syntax 3, which is combination from syntax 1 and syntax 2. So you see, because you probably don't understand syntax 1, you probably won't understand what the hell is going on in here. But anyway, the idea is very simple. Well, it's not simple, what am I saying? Okay, the idea is that we create a wrapper. that wrapper acts as a block of component holder, like a component holder, okay? Whatever we pass into the component holder property is going to be seen by all of its component children, right? So that's the key. There are two keys in here. Number one is that properties, you can reuse the wrapper, so you can pass different properties. Alright, so name can be anything, depending on what you put as a property. And the second important thing is that each block acts as individual block. Right, so when I use this wrapper on a different, to create multiple different blocks, not all of them are going to re-render at the same time. Does that make sense? Let's look at the diagram, right? So you see, I create wrapper, I pass properties, so that's block 1. Block 2, I create the wrapper, I pass the components, property 2. So when these properties here, or this wrapper, these properties change, these components do not re-render. They are completely separate group of components. Kind of think about it like you are reusing the component and you are passing the properties. Although everything is the same component, they don't re-render at the same time because the properties are different. If that makes sense. Because remember, like, components re-render when properties change. But since this props and this props did not change, oh whoopsie, this is wrong. There should be 3. I just don't draw it like this. 3. So you see, the core in here that props are different, and because props are different, re-rendering is different, and that's about it. Okay, so let's go through it again. We create a context, we create a wrapper, context wrapper, okay. We then create a block, and we put wrapper into it with props. So this is our block. We import the wrapper, we put the wrapper, and then we put infinite components. This can be like whatever, this can be like bazillion different components in here, okay? Now, we pass the properties. How does this component see the properties? The usual style. We take this context, right? How can they see this value? They can see it by using React useContext and the name of the context, which is coming from here. So every time you use React useContext, you're going to see these values. Again, you can create multiple different contexts, and if you want to see different values, you have to pass in different context. Man, this shit is so confusing. Right? And then that's it. And from here you can manipulate it. And again, let's say, okay, we want to create second block. We take the wrapper. Where's the wrapper? We take the wrapper. We create a block. We put it in here. Pass different properties. And then we pass different block of components in here. Again, how does this component see this value? He imports create context, which comes from here, into use context, which comes from here. And now he has access to these values. And that's it. Oh. And it works. So you see, this one re-renders, but this one does not. Because I have a console log in it, and you can see that it's not triggering. Only this one is triggering. Alright, take care, bye bye.